energy matters. Dr. Adefulu was involved with the Petroleum Industry Bill from its initial drafts in 2009 till its passage in 2021. He's the managing editor of www.petroleumindustrybill.com, the leading information portal that provides up-to-date information on the Petroleum Industry Bill, now the Petroleum Industry Act 2021. He was a member of the Nigerian National Assembly's Technical Committee on Petroleum Industry Reforms from 2015 to 2019. He advises several indigenous and international oil companies on the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act. Dr. Adefulu is the chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association section on business law, the MBA SBL. Dr. Adefulu will be speaking to you today on building a career in corporate law practice, and he also discuss the sections of the MBA. It is my pleasure to yield the floor to Dr. Adeoye Adefulu. Thank you very much. Adeoye, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, friends. Good afternoon, Tobena. Let me first of all start by thanking the Nigerian Bar Association for putting this together. I think it's an excellent idea, and it's a great initiative. So thank you to our president, YC Mikiao, SAN, and thank you to you for actually organizing this. It looks like we have some teething problems with the slides. So I'm going to try and put that up. But I also want to encourage you as we do that to share as much information as possible. I expect this to be an interactive session. Can everybody just confirm that you can hear me clearly?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I can see people are already sending some chats, etc. Great. So I hope that we can make use of those chats in our discussions today. So just bear with me a second as I put this up, try and put the slides up. I may also change connections if that's okay. So my quick question to you, and please use the chat as we're doing this, is what do you understand a corporate lawyer to be? So can you just put up your chats? And Latif, you're going to help me out in reading some of the things that come up on the screen. So what do we understand a corporate lawyer to be? I'm still waiting. Nobody has put anything up yet. Everybody was saying hello. And now that I'm asking a question, I can't see anything. Very good. So one person has made a comment. So a corporate lawyer is a lawyer who is involved in any legal work that does not involve litigation. Experts in corporate law.
Recording in progress.
Someone said a company lawyer. Can you still see and hear me clearly?
Yes, right on. We can hear you.
Okay. So I involve
your responses are flowing.
Corporate and commercial, someone who's largely involved in transactions relating to business. Excellent. The corporate lawyer is one that specializes on company organization and compliance. Very good. A lawyer who is involved in corporate law practice, registration of companies, advice, among other related matters. A lawyer who practices outside the courtroom. What else can I say?
Just bear with me a second. They are tasked with ensuring a company's transactions. Corporate lawyer is one whose primary duty is to ensure compliance with corporate laws within and outside Nigeria. Very good. Corporate lawyer to be that lawyer who advises on compliance and business transactions. Corporate lawyer is a lawyer who undertakes the legal aspect of setting up businesses, documentations, corporate governance, regulatory compliance to the lifespan, and even at the termination of the lifespan of the business. And finally, corporate lawyer is a lawyer who specializes in commercial transactions and company-related matters. Thank you. All very, very good comments. And my question is to Bena, I don't know why I'm here when everybody is able to answer these questions so competently. Can you see my slides?
Yes,
we can see your slides. We can see your slides.
Great. Just bear with me a second. I just want to make sure that it is projected properly. We lose slides.
The slides just went off now.
So, building a career in corporate law practice. So, Tobina, let me thank you for the kind introduction, and I will be talking about what corporate law practice is, and why that's an alternative for you. And who's a corporate lawyer? What skills do you require? Having a career plan. I think that's really, really important for everybody. Specializing, continuing education and professional development, very important in the context of what Tobina is doing, competency framework. And I thought I'd just sneak that in because that's something that we in the SBL have developed and I think will be useful for you. And I will talk a little bit about the section. Obviously, the bias is towards the section which I am a member, but I'll try and talk about the other sections as well. So who's a corporate lawyer? And many of the chats earlier kind of pointed out this. I think the first thing is in the context of Nigeria, because you could say who's a corporate lawyer. Another way in which you could phrase this is, sometimes you could call yourself solicitor. And there might be a distinction. There is a distinction actually. Because if you delve further, you might find out that, or you will find out that you can be a solicitor, but not necessarily a corporate solicitor. And perhaps this is a good time to tell you about something that a common mistake I see in CVs. I've seen people say that they have experience in soliciting. Let me advise those of you that are on this call to please not use that term to define what you do as a solicitor. It's the term soliciting is much more appropriate for something else that you probably will not want to be associated with. But essentially, a solicitor is, in the United Kingdom, for example, there is a distinction between a solicitor and a barrister. The barrister would typically be the one that goes to court, even though you do have solicitors who go to court. A barrister would go to court, would typically be instructed by the solicitor, not by the client directly. Whilst the solicitor will take instructions from the client, advise the client on various aspects, legal aspects of their work. And so that distinction of solicitor versus advocate in Nigeria is it's not going to be exactly the same thing, because all of us are called to the Nigerian bar. We're barristers and solicitors of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. So effectively, I can practice as a barrister and go to court. I can do work that is traditionally solicitor's work. But what you found over the years, and I would say this goes back further than 50 years, and some people may not realize this, but it goes back as far as over 50 years ago. There are certain people who have chosen that this will be what they will do. They will only practice as solicitors. And what does that mean? They will never appear in court. So one of the foremost firms for solicitors' work, and corporate work in particular, is Chris Ogubanja & Co. Chris Ogubanja & Co. has been in existence for, well, certainly north of 50 years, probably closer to 60, maybe 70 years. And lots of people who you may have heard of came out of our firm. One of my partners, Senator Odujiri, one of the founders of our firm, came out of Chris Ogubanja & Co. Mr. Aswe Godalo was in Chris Ogubanja & Co. Senator Odoma was in Chris Ogubanja & Co. The founding chairman of the section of business law, Mr. George Itomi, was also in Chris Ogubanja & Co. So lots of people like that. And given those examples, a number of those people that I have mentioned to you have chosen to practice solely as solicitors. So my partner, the founder of the firm, Senator Odujiri, has never been to court. So other than when he wore his wig and gown for call to bar, he hasn't had the need to wear that again, certainly not in the service of the client. I myself have never practiced as a barrister. I've never been to court other than during sort of the court attachment process of law school. So lots of people have chosen to go that route, the route of the solicitor. But you can be a solicitor, but also be serving primarily individuals. So, for example, if you're dealing with, some certain aspects of real estate matters, you might serve only individuals, or certain aspects of, well, personal estate matters, you would be serving primarily individuals. Or, there are a few other examples like that. But some people actually specialize in serving, giving legal advice just to businesses and organizations. So they serve only corporates. So in our firm, traditionally, our clients are specifically corporates. And indeed, the individuals that we serve them in corporate-related matters and not in respect of personal legal matters. And you cover a wide, and I say wide or narrow range of matters. And when I try to make this wide or narrow, there are some people who, in terms of their corporate practice, cover everything. They do every aspect of practice. They're in real estate, they are in general commercial law matters, they're in trade matters, they do IP, they do M&A, they cover the field. Whilst some others have taken their specialization as solicitor even further by specializing in certain areas. So, Shola Adekwetu, one of the people that I respect in the profession, is actually a solicitor, and his practice is very narrow. His practice is in energy and natural resources. As far as I know, Shola Adekwetu doesn't do anything other than energy and natural resources. There are certain firms that have a reputation for intellectual property. That's what they do. In those firms, other than intellectual property, very, very little do they get themselves involved in. And increasingly, we're beginning to see firms who are more involved in technology, one of members of our council, Rotimi, is a technology lawyer. There is a gentleman called Basil Udotai. Basil Udotai's his firm is called, I think it's Technology Law Associates or something like that. It's a narrow field. That is what they do. They do not do anything else. I myself am primarily an energy lawyer, energy and natural resources lawyer. And if you did a Google search on me, most of the things that you'll find in relation to my practice would be energy and natural resources matters. So there are several areas in terms of corporate law practice that you can cover. There are increasingly people that are just corporate governance lawyers or M&A lawyers, corporate and project finance, intellectual property, contracts and compliance. And our work involves research and interpretation of laws. That's a big part of the work. Laws, regulations, and legal documents. And it is geared to solving business challenges. And I want to challenge you. I think this is really important because one of the things, and I always talk about this when I'm talking to lawyers, one of the things I see as a challenge for us lawyers is that our education has been shaped primarily by lawyers. So you go into university, and other than some of the foundational classes that you take in year 1, from year 2 through to year 5, you are mostly or sometimes 100% taught by lawyers. Your lecturers teaching you contract law, teaching you tort law, criminal law, company law, etc. They're all lawyers. And then you graduate from university, and then you go on to the law school. And again, you are taught by lawyers. And it builds a kind of insularity, meaning that because everybody around you are lawyers, and indeed, even when you graduate, the people that supervise you in your work are lawyers. You're supervised by an associate, a senior associate, or a partner in the firm, all of them lawyers. And therefore, you tend to think only to answer the question for the lawyer. So if you look back at the way in which opinions are written, etc., they're almost written in a form in which we were taught how to write answers in university. So following the IRAC principle, issues, rules, applications, conclusion, etc. And it's a good formula. It's simple. It's a great framework. It helps you to work. But you have to realize, in particular as a corporate lawyer, that your work is to solve a business challenge. Frankly, the client is not interested in the highfalutin ideas about the law. They want the law to solve a problem that they have. And so if you are solving a business challenge, what does that mean? You cannot just understand law. You need to understand business. What is this business about? What problem are they trying to solve? And how can the law solve that? I think I'm moving on to, and then of course we are involved in negotiating, drafting, and reviewing all kinds of contracts. And I think this is really important. It's worthwhile mentioning it. Our law school, and improvements keep getting made every year, but they don't teach us some of the fundamentals around negotiation of contracts. So what do you do in terms of negotiation? How do you sit at the table? So that's a skill set you need to find and develop for yourself. There are obviously, I don't know if it's still called LDC, but legal drafting and conveyancing. Obviously, the elements of drafting are taught. But how is that taught? And how are we taught to draft in a way in which it's clear so that our clients, the business that we're trying to solve their problems, understand the contract? And then what does it mean to review a contract? What are you looking for when you are reviewing a contract drafted by somebody else? I remember someone, my wife is also a lawyer, and she was sort of sent in at the deep end and asked to review the contract when she first started in this organization. And she had no idea what to do. And, her supervisor said to her, I don't want to see spelling mistakes and minor errors. But that's what tends to happen when you are newly called to bar. That's what you first start to look out for. But the principle of what is important to look out for in a contract needs to be taught. And if you haven't been taught that at the law school, it's a skill set you need to make sure that you develop. And there are books around what you should be looking out for and other sorts of material. Let me move quickly on to the next slide. So I've told you what being a corporate lawyer is. And one point again that I try to underline is commercial awareness. And I think that's really, really important. It's not enough to be a lawyer and to understand the law. As a corporate lawyer, you need to understand and look at it from the perspective of your client. And your client is actually not the in-house lawyer. Some of us tend to think that. Ideally, your work should not be written in such a way that you pass it on to the in-house lawyer and they have to interpret it for the client, who is the person that is making the final decision, the MD, the GM in charge of that group, etc. So commercial awareness, having a clear understanding of what the business needs are, right, and how you frame it within the law. Obviously, interpersonal skills, because you have to deal with people all the time. And these are skill sets, obviously, that you will need even as a litigator or an advocate. Critical thinking, as lawyers, we need to understand. I think that's one skill set that our profession brings to us, but we need to hone that skill set further. Obviously, we don't need to talk about ethics. That's a fundamental part of our profession. But as a young lawyer, you need to understand that time management is going to be very, very critical for you in your practice as a business lawyer. And it's important for you to be assertive. You need to be clear. And when you are clear and you have a clear understanding of the issues that you're dealing with, you need to be able to stand your ground when it is absolutely necessary. And communication skill, if there is anything that you want to take away from here, your ability to communicate is the most important skill for you as a lawyer. And communicate via orally, communicating in writing, communicating through your body language. It's a skill set that you have to, and you think you have it, you don't have it. And this is not a challenge to you. It's a challenge. It is a challenge that I put myself through every day. I don't believe that I have the ultimate set of communication skills. And communication skill also means, when do I stop talking? When do I start talking? What intonation do I use? How do I vary my tone so that people that I'm speaking with are not bored? If that is a skill, if there's any skill set you want to make sure that you ground yourself in, that skill set is important. And it's important in your early days, because what's going to happen is when you join a law firm, they're going to give you an associate that will be responsible for your work and looking over your work. The last thing they want to do is correcting your work and redacting your work. So it is important that you train yourself to communicate. And talking about written communication in particular, you have to ensure that your message is clear. Again, as I said, we've been taught by lawyers And so we were rewarded for writing long paragraphs and long essays and long opinions, etc. Ultimately, the important thing is to make sure communication is about making sure that the person on the other side understands you. So clarity of language is critical. And I would add, please, brevity. Is also really important. Don't go on very long. Say what you want to say it clearly. Can you still hear me? Can someone just...
Loud and clear, I can hear you.
Excellent. Okay. So say what you want to say it clearly, say it briefly. Don't forget that set of skill sets. Let me move on. So, what do you need to do? Identify and focus on your goals. So, what exactly do I want to do? And that goal does not need to be as specific as I want to be an energy lawyer. That's not, you don't need to be as specific about it at this stage of your career. So what areas am I interested in? Do I like IT? Do I like entertainment? Do I like intellectual property? But I should say that for all of you that want to practice, that want to get involved in corporate practice, it is fundamental that you must understand, I think, corporate law. So you must understand the basics of companies law. You must understand the basics of mergers and acquisition. I would even say the basics of finance, because as an energy lawyer, for example, my clients are interested in acquiring other businesses. I need to know corporate law. My clients are companies, so they need to make filings. My clients will need to finance their operations, so I need to understand a little bit of finance. So those things must be there. You need to read as widely as possible, and reading widely also means reading outside of the law. Don't think about only reading your law books. Those things are important, but also go outside of law. And I would say read and listen to daily what's happening in the news, not just in Nigeria, but outside in the world as well. You've got to track your progress and measure your success and pitfalls. And I'll talk to you about a little bit about a tool that you can use, which the SBL has developed for that. Look for potential opportunities. And I think one of the things that is also very, very critical is developing a network of contacts and resources. So, and the relationships that you build, not just with your seniors, but also with your colleagues, will be critical for you. So there are many of us that practice in this area of energy law. We are all, a number of us, we are very good friends. If I have an issue that I am not clear about, there are a few people that I'll call. I'll call Dayo Kusami, for example, of Templars, or Yemisi Awonuga. Sometimes I'll call Olayemi Ayenichi, who's now the legal advisor of NUPRC. I have this issue. This is what I think. What do you think? They are my contemporaries. They're my peers. And some of them are actually perhaps a few years behind me at the bar. But we deal with these issues day by day. And, I'm not a preacher, but as the Bible says, iron sharpens iron, means that you can get knowledge and skills, particularly from your peers. So identify your peers that are good in other areas or good in areas that you're working in, and make sure that you connect with them. You give to them, and you can receive from them as well. You need to know what skills that you need. And again, the competency framework that I want to talk to you about will also help you to do that. Some tips, you've got to ultimately, you're going to pick an area. Ultimately, because we are getting into the world of specialization, even in IT law, there are some people that are very, very narrow and do only data processing, data protection law. So you're going to pick an area. So it may not be in the first year, it may not be in your second year, but after a period of time, you're going to pick an area. But even with picking an area, you've got to have versatility, which means that the foundations of your practice, kind of trying to know almost everything, just having an understanding of everything is going to be really important. Because when the client calls you, sometimes he's not calling you because, oh, I have this particular energy problem with the NUPRs. It might be my company's having an issue with, and this happens a lot now with the EFCC, and that's not a regulatory matter. It's not an oil and gas matter, but yet you need to provide advice. You need to be able to think on your feet. You need to understand business and industry trends. What, if I am in this area, what is happening in my business? What is happening in my industry? And one of the things that is free and available to everybody is Google Alerts. So I have Google Alerts set up for things that I'm interested in, for companies that I'm interested in, for people that I'm interested in. And that sends me an email. Sometimes it could be daily, sometimes weekly, depending on how you set it, so that you can know what the industry is doing. Just checking time. Some of you may think about going in-house, and going in-house is not it's not a bad idea. Some people go in-house to come back out because it helps them develop a better understanding of the sector that they're dealing with. I know one lawyer, one of the partners in Alupa and everybody, for many, many years, spent time in an investment bank. After becoming a senior associate at Alupa, went into an investment bank for a while, not doing legal for an investment bank, but doing investment banking. And he got those skills, and he's back out now a partner in Alupa and using those skills that he got from investment banking, using it for the practice. You've got to build a brand. And building your brand is as simple as, it's really about what do you want to be known for, right? And so I tell you I'm an energy lawyer, and that's really what I am. But I do other areas. But if you look out for me, all you will find, most of what you'll find, probably 99.9%, is around the field that I practice. It's deliberate because I want to be known as this person in this area. So when you've picked an area, you've got to build your brand in that area. What does that mean? You write, you speak, you look for opportunities to engage. Look, the young men, ladies on Twitter, young lawyers who have built a reputation of sharing knowledge, a reputation around sharing knowledge with young lawyers or with their contemporaries, sometimes on contract law, sometimes on MLE law, in different areas. And from using Twitter to build that brand, they're now well known and established outside of Twitter, and their seniors have got to know them as well. So be very focused around that. Continuing education. Look, every opportunity to learn, you must grab it. And what is interesting about the world today is that there's so many tools that are available to you as a lawyer. All you need to do is a simple Google search. And people are so generous with their information. Law firms are sharing articles, They have blogs, not just Nigerian law firms across the world. So if you want to learn about anything, you can learn for free. And increasingly, you will see that in our profession, in Nigeria, we also have lots of people sharing information for free and for a price. The ICLE is a great example, and they've run so many programs. They ran a number last year, and they will continue to run this year. The SBL, every week, we have a business law weekly program on different topics. Speedel has a number of webinars as well. SLP also has a number of webinars. Attend focused and professional training and events, but also, I would say, not just legal professional training, legal training, but non-legal training as well. So if you pick the sector and the junior level colleagues in that sector are attending training on something, go there, go and learn, because it will help you to build your network. It will help you to build your network, because people are always impressed by lawyers who go out of their way to understand the industry that they are serving. So let me now, I think I have about 5 minutes left, very quickly talk to you about the competency framework. And so the SBL, the section of business law, which I chair, a few years ago, developed what is called the SBL Business Law Competency Framework. And what is, in general, what is a competency framework? It's a document which defines skills, knowledge, attributes, and behaviors that is expected of professionals in a company or a sector. What are those skills? What is that level of knowledge? What are those behaviors that you should have to be successful in that sector? And our sector, in our business law, we've said it's been developed because there's an increasing emphasis on competency. And those, what you call soft skills, what people used to say in a very derisive manner, as if, soft skills don't matter. They are fundamental to your practice. And so we have competencies which deal with soft, non-legal skills, but also looking at core legal skills in, for now, 5 practice areas. So we identified practice areas that people typically as business lawyers will have some form of work with: real estate, corporate, banking and finance, corporate dispute resolution, and intellectual property. And what it seeks to do is to define minimum standards of proficiency for associates, senior associates, associate partner, and partner as well. So each practice area will identify various knowledge areas. We will say, what are the skills a business lawyer should have? What should they know? What is their minimum level of expertise? So just using real estate as an example, talk about rights and interests in real estate and real property, sales and purchases, and other estate matters, zoning and land use property development, etc., etc. Let me just outline here some of the framework. Elements of the framework. So this shows you some of the non-legal skill sets, and we've talked about a few of them when we're looking at required skills. So, analytical thinking, and for you as a newly called lawyer, this is where you should be. This is the framework you should be looking at. Analytical thinking, we expect you to have a basic level of analytical thinking, commercial acumen, basic communication skills, basic continuous learning, basic, etc. And it goes down the line. Microsoft Office, presentation skills. Presentation skills for you as a young lawyer is meant to be intermediate. Obviously, integrity is meant to be intermediate as well. So there is a certain level. And what the competency framework, and you see that as you grow as a lawyer, as you move from a junior associate to an associate, senior associate, the skill level increases. And by the time that you are a partner, you are expected to be an expert in this area. You're expected to be a leader, someone that is recognized in this area. So, what I've tried to do, just bear with me a second. I think I need to erase all these things. Thank you. So this is, a description. I'm going to take, I will take two of them. I'll take communication skills and what is expected of you as a junior lawyer. So let's start with communication skills. And what does communication skills mean? It says it's the ability to interpret complex technical legal issues into comprehensible advice, i.e. advice that someone can understand, which is practical and based on a thorough understanding of the reality of the current situation. So the understanding of the reality of the current situation is not a legal thing. It's that business awareness, right? Can communicate effectively with business colleagues. So, and communicating effectively with business colleagues is, please do not use Latin phrases in your opinions to business colleagues. They don't understand it. And this air of putting mystery around our work, by mystifying it with Latin and other kind of phrases, is that era, I think, is long. You can communicate effectively with business colleagues and other stakeholders at different levels using the appropriate level of detail and language. Appropriate level of detail. Nobody, as an MD, as a CEO, as a director, I do not want to see a 20-page opinion. It's just too long for me. It's too long for me. And if you're going to write a 20-page opinion, you have to have an executive summary that tells me what the key points are, because that's what I'm going to read. So what is basic? You communicate clearly. That means I can understand you. You communicate accurately. That means that what you're saying is right. You communicate confidently. You are assured that what you're saying is right. And you communicate concisely. You don't go overboard and talk for a long period of time and go round and round. And you communicate in a timely manner, meaning I need this from you today, I get it from you today. You listen well. You ask the right questions so that you can gather the information that is required. And then you can adapt your behavior and communication style to suit the context and the audience. So you look at who you are speaking to when you are communicating. And then obviously you understand the basic nuances and grammatical constructs. So how do I communicate in a clear way? So that kind of gives you on the communication skills and what you are expected as a new lawyer. So Bernard, do I still have time?
If you need more time, you can take another 5 minutes.
Okay, so let me just, I'll deal with discipline. Thank you, Tobina. Discipline is able to stick to the course, especially in the face of challenges, consistent and reliable. consistency and reliability is so critical. If you want to be appreciated by your senior associates, whoever is supervising you, your ability to be consistent and reliable, i.e., I call on you, I know you'll be there. It's not that your phone is somewhere far away. That is critical. And use a variety of ways to get things done. Your focus is to make sure that things get done. For you, as a young lawyer, you have a can-do attitude. That means when a challenge comes, the first thing is, oh, this cannot happen. It's like, okay, so how can I make it happen? It may not be able to happen it may not happen this way, but it can happen this other way. How can I make it happen? You find a way to overcome obstacles, frustrations, or constraints in order to achieve the assigned task or responsibility. That is what is expected of you as a new lawyer. So very quickly, this tool can help you as a business lawyer to chart your career path. So you first use it to identify what gaps do I have. When I look at myself, that's on that matrix and that framework. Am I operating at the level that is expected of me as an associate in a corporate law firm? And if I don't have that skill, how do I address it? By training by myself, looking for training opportunities outside of my firm, making sure that my firm provides training opportunities, I can jump on it, and I jump on it. And then you can use it to chart your career path. So you go back to that tool and say, how am I doing in communication? How am I doing with discipline? You assess yourself and use it as a way to look at what's next. And what you have to do is not just meet the level that you are supposed to be on. You have to work so that the next level, and the next level, you're already charting your course towards that. So, quick, and that kind of brings to the end of that. Quick word on the sections. Section on business law, as you know, we are the section for corporate lawyers. And I should mention that the new Nigerian Bar Association constitution actually requires all members of the Nigerian Bar Association to join one of the sections. And you can join any of these three. You can join. So, but if you are interested in corporate law, section on business law is a section for you. The section on legal practice is more focused on advocacy, whilst the section on public interest and development law is focused on public interest matters, human rights matters, and matters related to development of the economy as well. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much to the section. Thank you very much to the ICLE, to Bena. Thank you very much to the president of the Nigerian Bar Association. It's really been a pleasure chatting with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dioye. Brilliant presentation. Nothing less than what I expected. I can't see any other panelists on board today, but I'll just say that it's interesting, all the points that you've raised and the way you walked through your entire paper. I particularly like the fact that you started by distinguishing between a solicitor and an advocate. And I'll just make a quick comment before we go to the questions that we have in the Q&A box. Please, I'll ask delegates to put their questions in the Q&A box so we can take them. I've always wondered why, when Nigeria decided to start its own qualification process for practice in Nigeria, we didn't have the distinction between barristers and solicitors as you have in England. And interestingly, but I think it's a huge point, and I like the point that you mentioned, versatility. because the fact that you're allowed to practice as a barrister and a solicitor helps you to express yourself either way if you have the aptitude. And I have quite a lot of respect for those lawyers who can present themselves on occasion as corporate lawyers and at the same time as litigators. So, you know, and I think that you can borrow something either way from practicing across the field. And because our market is not as sophisticated or mature as perhaps some other markets in the world, it would serve a young lawyer a very good purpose to try and get as much experience and knowledge of both areas of the practice field as one can get. But thank you very much, Dioye, for a very great presentation. I think we've got 2 questions in Q&A. So one says, good day, sir. Is it possible to be a litigation lawyer and subsequently switch to being a corporate lawyer?
Very, very possible. There are lots of people who have that background. I'll give an example. Aswe Ighodalo. Aswe Ighodalo wanted to be just a litigation lawyer. He still says that he was looking forward to being an SAN and all that. And he changed. He moved from being a litigator. He moved into corporate practice, and that's what he's well known for today. Another example is Ken Etim. Ken Etim used to be a litigator in Banwa and Ighodalo. He's managing partner of Banwa and Ighodalo today, and all he does is corporate law work. He doesn't do any litigation anymore. So you can do that, and there are lots of people who, as Tubena said, do both. They go to court, they serve corporate clients in court, but also give corporate commercial advice as solicitors as well. So you can choose. I think what's important about what's available to you as a Nigerian lawyer is that you can focus on just being a barrister or just being a solicitor or doing both, and you can do well in either way. But you know, it is your choice.
So the second is, in the corporate world, law firms and other firms are reluctant to hire new hands. So what happens when the law firm which you left, which you felt would give you a push, doesn't employ you? Where exactly is the first place to start? Law firms, tax organizations, where exactly? And the second question from the individual is, everyone in the profession talks about brevity. How brief can an M&A agreement be? What's the guideline for this brevity talked about?
That's a good question. I mean, look, there are some documents that cannot avoid being you know, we've worked on 100, 200-page contracts. It is what it is. But I think the important thing is to make sure that you're not doing more than what you're supposed to be doing. Because even me as a young lawyer, I prided myself in how large my documents were. What I should be thinking about is, what value is this document to the client? So there are contracts that they will be long, but as long as each clause that is there is serving a purpose, you're fine. What I advise against is, putting things there as fillers, or because you want to look like you have a large document, or you want your client to appreciate that you've put in a lot of work into this, and therefore you have to have a large document. And I will also emphasize brevity, in particular in relation to things like emails or letters, because those can almost always be shorter than you want them to be, or you normally make them. So make sure that you're not putting any fillers that are totally unnecessary. And as an example of something that is totally unnecessary, the use of totally in that sentence was unnecessary. If you said unnecessary, it was sufficient.
Thanks, Joe. There was the first limb to that, or the first question there, which was that in the corporate world, law firms and other firms are reluctant to hire new hands. So what happens where the law firm, which you left, presumptive, but yes.
I remember that. Look, to be honest, we're facing a really challenging economy, and I don't know that it is reluctance to hire, but it's ability. It is about the ability to meet up with obligations. I think that we have lots of people in our profession, but we focus very narrowly on, I would say, certain part of the economy. So Lagos, in terms of corporate law, Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, perhaps, and maybe Kano. But the ability to develop corporate law practice in other jurisdictions, in the East, in Aba, in Abia, that ability is significant. We don't want the guy who is manufacturing shoes in Aba to come to Port Harcourt to get corporate law advice. He must be able to go to somebody within that locale, someone in Aba branch that is able to support him and give corporate law advice in that area. And likewise, if you're doing anything in Kano, you should have more than enough lawyers to support you from a business law perspective. But it is challenging. I think if you know that this is an area that you want to focus on, you have to keep looking out for the right opportunities, and building your networks. I would say involvement in things like this, coming to bar association or branch meetings, is also another area, because you get to meet people, and perhaps there might be somebody that can help you.
Thanks a lot, DOA, for that. And I think that it's a bit presumptive now to say that there are the reluctance to hire new hands. And I'd like to talk more about the opportunities that are available today in the market. And just to say to the person who raised the question that there's a lot of mobility now as far as employment is concerned, and you find a lot of opportunities being created by people moving out of Nigeria or going other places to work, or in the corporate world and all of that, creating a lot of spaces. In my firm, for instance, last year, about 10 people left the firm to travel abroad for different opportunities, either to go to school or to work. As far as young youth corpers are concerned, I think we have more youth corpers this year. We have about 10 than we've ever had before. So, wow. So there are opportunities out there today. I know most firms are hiring young people and training them. So you have to be active in the market and look out for opportunities. And I think also the point that Dioye makes about, the latitude that's allowed you as a young lawyer, as any lawyer in Nigeria, even to engage in your own practices, wherever you are. I often say that programs like this afford you the opportunity to gain basic training and also to know those in the industry who could help you grow. There are a lot of people you can shadow. So we often use the example of Onitsha, for instance, that has the highest level of trademarks, but very few IP lawyers. And I'm sure that Dioye will tell you that most of his clients, he's never really met them. He doesn't know them. So if you're in Onitsha or anywhere in the world, once you have the expertise and you know how to put yourself out there and make people know that you have those skills, I think the opportunities will also come your way. Thank you very much, Dioye, for a very brilliant session. I know the guys who will take the other session are already here, but I must say that this session has been very educative. I can see the comments that are coming through on them. For those who listen to Dioye, and I'm sure from the beginning, you see a very big similarity in the work that we do, similarity between what his presentation today and the one on what the judges expect of you in court that was done by Dr. Dimba yesterday. But very instructive, very educative, very detailed. And I must say, Dioye, that the paper is even is something that most lawyers should be interested in. And I've received calls from senior lawyers who are actually on this call telling me that that it's been quite engaging. So thank you very much for this.
Well, let me thank you, and thank you for inviting me. I should also thank my colleague who's here, Latif Bamdele, who helped me in preparing the slides. So that's a young lawyer who's, on top of his feet. And I can't go without selling the section on business law. We're a great section. We focus on business law practice. If you want to understand what's going on in business law, you need to join the section and you need to interact with our colleagues in the section. So mbsbl.org. Yeah,
that's actually my section too. And I must say that the section on business law is a pioneer section as far as training and development is concerned. There's a lot going on at the moment, the Business Law Weekly, and a lot of training coming out of the stables of the SBL. And I just encourage lawyers at their spare time. We must find time to train, to seek knowledge, to equip ourselves for what we do every day. The economy is tough, and it could be the least knowledge that you pick up from any session that makes a difference in your bottom line for any given period. So thank you very much, Dioye. Keep it up at the SBL and see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
All right. So now we're going over to the next segment for today, which is the second session. The second session is actually the last session in the series, and it is expected to be very engaging because we have two very dynamic and intelligent young men who will be taking us through today's session. Because we've eaten into their time by a bit, I'm not going to go into an elaborate introduction of them, but they are going to be talking about the emerging lawyer and the path to the future. Mr. Toby Adebowale is a young lawyer, a very good friend of mine. He's the immediate past president, past chairman of the Young Lawyers Forum of the Nigerian Bar Association, very experienced young man who's had significant practice experience in firms like George Tomi & Co., in Banwani Godalo, and is now a corporate lawyer in the private sector. I'm happy to have him here. His co-speaker today is Mr. Muntasi Adamu, another very dynamic young lawyer who happens to be the chairman of the Young Lawyers Forum. Currently, he's a young man who not only has done quite a bit as a legal practitioner, but is also working in one of the top 4 accounting firms at the moment. So very versatile young man also. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you. I don't know how we start. Toby, do we start with you? Toby, are you leading?
My chair, good afternoon.
How are you guys going to play it?
I think we can start with the chairman. Courtesy demands that we allow the chairman to have precedence.
Okay, fantastic. Muntasi. Muntasi, you're well decked up. I can see your headphones. So great stuff. All ready to go. All right. Delegates, my pleasure to yield the floor to Muntasi Adamu. Thank you very much. Muntasi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, sir. Once again, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Muntasi Adamu. Just like Mr. Tobena mentioned, I'm happy to be here. Yes, I'm happy also that I'm doing this together with Toby. Toby is the leader past chairman of the YLF, and of course, he's a brother and a very dear friend. So the topic for today of our own session is basically to look at the emerging areas of the law, and where we definitely going to like share our own experience as well, personal experience, and those areas we believe young lawyers can also take advantage of. Sorry for my my visuals. I'm somewhere far in the northeast, yeah, for a project, so that's why my connection is a bit low. Yes. For me, I think that some of the areas that I have highlighted, and I'm going to speak on, there are like 6, which I'm sure when Toby's when it's Toby's turn to speak, I'm sure Toby will also highlight some of these areas as well. So one of them, I believe, let me just start first with my own experience. Yes, so I was called to the bar in 2017. Yes, and I did my youth service in Abuja at the law firm of Mahmoud Magaji, senior lawyer of Nigeria. From there, I moved to Lagos, where I had the privilege of working at George Temre and Partners as well, where I was seconded to a disco, Eco Disco to be exact. Of course, I was there for about 2.5 years. From there, I moved to one of the big accounting, big 4, as we call them, audit and consulting firms globally, which is called PwC PricewaterhouseCoopers. I was there for about 1 year, 6 months. Before November last year, I moved to Ernst & Young, another big 4 as well, where I'm a student associate as well. So some of this is basically my own experience as a person, and how I've moved from being just a lawyer to moving into the field, and which has offered me the opportunity to actually advise clients in different areas, from in both energy, in the FMCG, agribusiness, government. I've done a couple of work for the public sector. That's talking about government as well. So I think these are some of the things that I've done personally to be able to, like, within my short career, try and actually follow my own passion, my desire towards being not just a lawyer, not just any lawyer just goes to court only, but look at different areas of how I can build a specialty for myself. And those areas that I believe are quite germane that young lawyers can also look into. One of them includes healthcare law. The healthcare law, of course, we know currently there's hype about personal lifestyle and healthcare, not just in Nigeria, but globally, right? So, and this is one area that I think a lot of young lawyers can take advantage of, right? We have people, registering to, okay, please, okay, I think, confirm you can hear me now, okay. There are different areas of the law that you can actually take advantage of. And one of them, like I said, is the area of healthcare law. People are so passionate about personal lifestyle now and everything. So this is one area that I believe, you as a young lawyer can choose to cap a niche for yourself in the area of healthcare. You can go there and think of things that you can really provide specialty. The issue of different kind of medical negligence that can happen in the process, right? How as a young lawyer, how are you positioning yourself when it comes to the area of healthcare? How can you provide services to patients, and also even to the companies as well? We're seeing healthcare companies coming up that that people can just sit down from within a comfort of your home to just like speak to a doctor, get a medicine prescribed to you that will be sent to your home. So these are things that you can look at it and see whether you're interested in the area of healthcare law, and how you can have equip yourself with what you need actually to excel in that regard. Another area is the area of intellectual property. Of course, we know what's happening in the area of intellectual property, right? A lot of people would need to ensure that the inventions are safe, from copyright and everything. So it's one area that, as a young lawyer, I think is one area that you can actually cap a niche for yourself. Then aside that one, of course, no issue of tax law. Recently, or as early as last year, I know there was issue between Rivers State government and also and FRS about who should be the right body to collect VAT, right? So different areas, companies are thinking of how they can limit their tax exposure. So these are areas that I believe you can definitely have a niche for yourself. If you're interested in tax law, you can know that many lawyers, law firms are doing so well around areas of tax. Identify these people and see how you can actually either reach out to them for mentorship, and there are different trainings online that you can do, books that you can read on tax that I believe can actually expose you to a lot of things actually regarding tax. One area I believe young lawyers can also take advantage of. Another area is the issue of sport and entertainment. All of us know what's happening around sport and entertainment. So this one area that I believe, what do you call it? We have sport agents, right? We have, especially those that watch football. You know how much agents, if you're signing a player, how much the player will charge, in terms of drafting the contract and everything. These are areas that you can actually cover niche for yourself. Look at, if you go to entertainment, you can see people endorsement. Artists are getting endorsements every day. How can you place yourself in a better position that when it comes to when these artists are looking for lawyers that will draft agreements for them, contracts for endorsement, that you're there, you're the person that they will reach out to. I know one law firm that does, look at, for instance, I'm sure some of us are aware of Bobo Ajudua, who is more like Davido's lawyer. Look, I can see what these are the areas that not just for Davido, he provides the such services to other artists within that space as well. So these are areas that if you're interested in sport or entertainment law, the areas I believe you can also take advantage of really and see how you can do well for yourself. Issue of cybersecurity, something that is quite one area that I believe young lawyers can also take advantage of. The issue of cyberbullying that's happening, how people do the issue of cyberbullying in Nigeria. So these are things that areas that I think young lawyers can really take advantage of really and carve a need for themselves, because there's a need for specialty. You can't just do everything on your own. You should be known for something. That's what's one thing I believe, and I'm sure Toby would also add his own bit as well. Toby, are you there? So you can go ahead and also speak on this topic. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Montasir. Good afternoon, everyone. I must start by appreciating Mr. Tobena Rojikwe, chairman of the MBA Institute for Continuing Legal Education, for the opportunity and indeed for putting this together. It is one thing that many young lawyers really need, and many of us who started out in the profession without the benefit of this type of forum felt that we really needed to fix this. And when Mr. Tobena raised the idea with me, I was absolutely in support of it. So I must say kudos to him and the ICLE for putting this together and for bringing it to reality. Now delving into the topic for this session, which is young lawyer and the path to the future. I'm just going to now, sort of build on what Montasir has already done, which is to lay the foundation. He has talked about the various areas where young lawyers can begin to look at in terms of trying to carve a niche for themselves, and also the different realities you might have to contend with. So in going further, I have just a few slides to show you. I'm going to talk about some of the pros and challenges you might have to deal with, and then look at a few more things. Okay, so just a second. And okay, so I believe you can see my screen now.
Yeah, it's up.
Okay, thank you. So I mean, we go back to the basics. For you to be here, I mean, the session was primarily advertised to persons who were called recently, perhaps late 2021 and sometime in the middle and the end of 2022. But I imagine that we also have a couple of other people who fall within the category of young lawyers here joining us. I mean, so typically the MBA's definition by the MBA Constitution is that anyone who falls within the 1 to 7 years post-qualification or post-call years, as we call it, is a young lawyer. And, as the MBA and the Supreme Court define, that's post-call year. It begins from the first year you pay your bar practice fees. So someone who was called in 2022 is deemed to be 1 year at the bar, even though it's not yet, for instance, November 2023, by which time the person would have clocked the calendar year at the bar. That is not so much of an issue. So I'll move to the next one, which is how employers define who a young lawyer is. I'm sure you've had the benefit of listening to various employers in the course of this series, and you perhaps might have gained some insights, drawn your own inferences and conclusions on how they approach employment, recruitment, and their perception of young lawyers. So I'm just perhaps going to offer my own personal perspective to it and add to it. Employers really, I mean, of course, look at the year you start out, maybe pay some attention to the calendar year, but then they are also particularly, focused on how much you know, what you know, and then that determines the kind of responsibilities you're entrusted with as time goes on. And so you may not want to limit yourself by thinking that, oh, I'm still young in age, or it's not so long I was called, and then shy away from responsibilities. Employers are really looking for people who are going to step up, take tasks and lead on those tasks as though they were, experts in that domain. So what this means really is, as soon as you have the opportunity, do your research, put yourself to the task, and try and quickly upskill so that you become respected within the circles or within the office as someone who gets the job done. Now, this does not mean that you may not feel some pressure when you come afresh to a certain tasks. That pressure is normal, it's typical. But one thing you need to do is make sure you put in your best effort, seek help where you need to speak with other persons who are perhaps intermediates, associates, get some support where you need to ask your colleagues. But one thing you really need to do is apply yourself. And where I'm driving at is this. You might then find soon enough that someone who was called to the bar, say 4 years ago, can rise up to become a senior associate within a particular law firm in their 5th year, whereas someone who has, who was called, say, 5-6 years ago, may still be struggling to get the nod for that kind of promotion. One thing that typically is the difference is this: the ability to take initiative, the ability to be bold and take responsibility and step up to the challenge when there is one. That is often the difference. Now, we are not all gifted in the same way in terms of retention, instinct to identify issues and all that, but there really no issues or concepts or segments or areas of law that when you put in more work and apply yourself that you cannot master. So one thing is, if you identify certain gaps, for instance, as Dr. Adeoye mentioned earlier, when you identify gaps, you try to plug those gaps. If you identify areas where you need to spend more time to build your capacity, then you need to quickly do that, so that way you tend to come up the ladder quicker than or some other people might. And then this segues into my next bullet point, which is how you define it. Now, as there's a joke that I sometimes tell my friends that at the time I was appointed the chairman of the Young Lawyers Forum, I was about stopping to see myself as a young lawyer. So it took me some element of resistance. I had to overcome some element of resistance within myself to accept that responsibility, because I was starting to lead on some engagements within the office where I was, and I was practically trying to step up to interact and interface with clients and colleagues from other law firms without thinking, oh, I was just 4 or 5 years at the bar, you know. And that is one thing about how you see yourself. How do you define yourself as a young lawyer? Do you see yourself as somebody who is just going to be spoon-fed and held by the hand for a long period of time? I mean, I've been in certain fora where people, you know, define a young lawyer as somebody who is a lawyer up until the time they are called to they are elevated to the rank of silk, become an SAN. And some other person says, oh, up until the person is 10 years post-call, they are still a young lawyer. Whereas when I was 4 years post-call, because of the kind of engagement I was starting to lead and the kind of activities I was involved in, both within and outside the firm, I was starting to feel like maybe I'm no more exactly a young lawyer, you know. So you need to see yourself growing up. You need to see yourself as more than just what other people call you, especially when people tend to, I mean, sometimes you can be in an environment where people tend to look down on you by the mere fact that you're a young lawyer. I will come to that later on. So one thing is define yourself, and in defining yourself, you really should be aiming for the top and to be the best version of yourself. So I'm going to then move on to what the present is, and this is just an analysis of what is good about being a young lawyer and what kind of challenges you face. I mean, being a young lawyer presents you with some latitude. It's seen as a learning curve. Everybody sort of sees you as somebody who is in the firm, who is just starting out and is there to learn. So you are probably going to be caught some slack on some issues. Some more people are probably going to offer you help and reach out to guide you through whatever activities or tasks or assignments you have. You have that benefit. And then also, I mean, especially when you're just starting out, your first year, second year, you have this flexibility of dreams. And this is what I mean by that. There are some of us who tend to have almost like disparate aspirations, or we sort of feel like we are good in different things at about the same time. So for instance, I was very active in what we call the Motor and Mock Society in my university. I liked litigation, or I aspired to be a litigator. I liked the advocacy. I participated in various competitions, and I liked that argument, drafting briefs and all that. But at some point as well, I got introduced to energy law by circumstance. I took a course in it in the university, and then when I joined George and Partners, I saw in practical terms what it entailed, and I got more interested in it. The beautiful thing though at the time was, I mean, in that particular firm, we're allowed to, you know, work across different areas. So I was able to go to court and come back and deal with contracts. I was juggling both sides. Now, what I'm trying to point out here is that at that point when you're just starting out, you can try different things. I mean, there's still some time ahead of you to then later on focus on a particular thing. But as a young lawyer, there's still that chance to be flexible. You can follow your interest in different areas. Perhaps if your firm is not too strict, you can ask for the opportunity to work across different areas. And there are even some firms like B&I, for instance, where they rotate you in your first and second year, they rotate you across different practice areas. So you can test out your aspirations in all these areas and see which one you really like the most, and then decide on where to focus on. Yeah, for the next step, which is multiple career options. Now, at the point when you're starting out, the world, of course, is like your oyster. There's just this wide field ahead of you, and then you can choose what part of the field you want to play on, either as a defender, a midfielder, or as a striker. I mean, also subject to the kind of natural talents you have. But at that point in time, I mean, things are still a bit flexible. It might become slightly more difficult when you rise up to start to be as standing in the profession, and you suddenly want to switch. You might be thinking that, do I have to go back to the end of the queue in litigation, for instance, for Mr. Tobina? If he wants to do litigation now, or wants to become sick, you might start thinking, where does it start from, and all that. You know, so when we're still young, we can look at all the options ahead of us, and there are probably many of them. We're flexible. We can move to different sites and pursue that. And now, for something that closely aligns with some of the areas Mutasir has identified, the evolving nature of legal practice and emerging areas of the profession means that there are many people who are doing new things, and you will find that many of these people are young people. I mean, I've interacted with quite a number of founders in the technology space, in financial technology, fintech, and a couple of other types of technology, health tech, legal tech, and agri-tech, among others. You will find that a lot of them are people between the ages of 21 and 25. Like, I have met quite a number of 24-year-olds who have done 2 rounds of seed raise and all that, and are possibly worth like $3 million personally now, as young tech founders. Now, being young means you are somewhere within this category right now. You can easily make friends with people who are starting ventures in different areas, and that sort of helps you to make something. I mean, what we call marketing or finding briefs, making rain, as we call it. So if you're going to build your ability to bring in clients and all that, socialize and all that, it also helps that you are within the age range of people who are doing new things, and you can easily find out what is new, what is happening, and also connect with people in all these areas: tech, sports, entertainment, and the likes. So I'm just going to touch briefly on the other side. Now, for the challenges, what are the downsides? Many times, some young lawyers say, "Oh, if only they told me what this profession was like," or I'm going to tell my younger ones, don't bother studying laws and that, because of some of the issues they are now dealing with that they never knew they would deal with. Well, I mean, it's probably why we have sessions like this, so that you can have the benefit of hindsight being provided by people who have gone through where you are now. So some of the things that we have dealt with, I mean, though we are still relatively young as well, one is competition. As for instance, Mr. Desmond Ogba might have told you when during his own session, you're competing, you're working in a very competitive space, and lawyers, I mean, you have to be at your best game for you to get invited to the best law firms, for you to be entrusted with work by a client, for you to be entrusted with work even within a law firm by your seniors, and all of that. So one thing, though, this challenge does for you is it helps you to push yourself. So you're constantly reading and researching and trying to be a better version of yourself. So it's not entirely a bad thing, but we can all admit that it is quite a competitive space. Perception by senior lawyers, this is one thing I'm passionate about talking. I like to talk about. For certain types of practices, I mean, I'll try not to be too specific. You will come across some remarks now and then where people think that you are just another piece of furniture in the office space. You are just there to make up the numbers. They don't necessarily think you have a lot to offer intellectually or in terms of addressing issues. So you hear a lot of stories if you talk to people. I mean, people who cannot be entrusted. I mean, or it's not like they cannot, but somehow their seniors do not just trust them to go move motions. So they can work for 2-3 years in a particular law firm and do not have any record of appearing alone in court or moving motions, handling certain types of files or cases. I mean, you can have all sorts of stories like that. Though there are some other places where this is not necessarily the case, but this is one thing I have an issue with as far as the legal profession is concerned. We seem to have sort of a preponderance, a majority of people who tend to look down on young lawyers as so they're just there. Their opinions are not necessarily sought for on critical matters. And we see this even within the MBA itself. Sometimes there are situations where you are going to, wonder, oh, why is the young person not involved in this? Why is the young person not, being asked to contribute to this? But thankfully, we have some wonderful people like Mr. Tobena, who definitely tries to incorporate young people into everything he's doing. And he, for instance, gave me the opportunity to join the MBA when I was in my first year of practice. He invited me to participate in something I was doing at MBA Lagos, and then has remained a mentor all along. So you might come across this, and one way to handle this is to remain respectful, but as much as possible, try to get your points across respectfully. Do not look down on yourself. And that's one thing I stress to my colleagues, especially when we're talking about elections and what have you. You're probably new to the system, you get to see this later, but it's important I sort of prepare your mind for it. Especially during that period, you may come across people who just see you as numbers, and they are not going to necessarily seek your mind or your input on things. They just think they can invite you to a party and a couple of other things that do not necessarily, look like they respect your or value your mind, your mental and intellectual contributions on issues. So you have to prepare yourself for that. But one solution is have some self-respect. Have some self-respect. It is very important. Interact with seniors cordially and respectfully, but also respect yourself and compose yourself accordingly. Remuneration is something that is an issue. A lot of young lawyers in the market may not be earning what they think they should be earning. When I was chairman and we did a survey, we found out that the numbers were really poor across the country. And thankfully, the MBA looked into it, and a committee was set up. The report of that committee is now being implemented. So we hope that things will change. Though some of the concern really is also about the economy and the situation of things in the country, but then we feel that some minimum standards can be set across the country in terms of remuneration, and we hope to see this fully implemented in due course. That is also close to the next challenge, which is lack of uniform standards for working environment and welfare standards. So you see in some places there are no basic provisions for research, in terms of stipends when people go to court. So the lawyer is dragging bag and case files and his wig and gown on a bike, and a couple of other not so pleasant scenarios like that, or lawyers being employed without employment letters, no pension benefits, and a couple of other things that they should typically have. There are presently no uniform standards for that, but again, this is also something that is now being looked into, and we hope that this will be fully addressed soon enough. But these are some of the issues that are at play. Now, I'm going to now talk about what is changing, and which is really why we're looking to the future. Some of them have been touched on by Montasir, but one of the 4 things I just want to add to that is that increasingly clients and law firms or employers are looking for lawyers who sort of bring more to the table. That is what we call the more for less demand. A client wants to pay, almost the same fee for the service of a business analyst and a legal analyst and a legal drafter at the same time. So if you can pick up more skills in addition to what you've been taught in law school, I absolutely recommend. And this is not even about saying if you can, I think you should. Mr. Albert talked about commercial awareness in the session, and this cannot be reiterated enough, cannot be emphasized enough. So some of the practical ways to help you build up in this area is what I'm now concerned about bringing to fore. So I subscribe to a couple of newsletters. Because I'm practically or I'm primarily in the energy industry, though I do some work in tech as well. I'm primarily in the energy industry. I subscribe to newsletters for the energy sector in Nigeria and globally. So I have a couple of newsletters I read almost every day when they send analysis of various issues happening in the energy industry, Rystad Energy, and then if you subscribe to important is part like Business Day. You also get to read useful stuff almost every time. If you're looking to upskill in the area of finance, if you subscribe to Finimize, you get regular tips on issues in the financial sector and fintech and a lot of other things like that. Now, depending on the area you're looking to, build more skills and capacity in, you may need to do some more research, and that is very important. So you need to be able to act as a business analyst, analyze the business, understand the business of the client, understand the issues of the client. Or if you're, for instance, providing support on a health litigation matter, for instance, negligence, you need to understand the language of the hospital. You need to read beyond what the law says to understand how the law applies in different situations. Now, specialization, very important. I haven't said earlier that the market is competitive. One way to then stand out is to create a special portion of the market for yourself. At your stage, especially when you're just starting out, this is not what we would emphasize, but it is something to have at the back of your mind as you go through different areas. Try to start to begin to think of which of them you would like to build more skill and prominence in. That can prove useful later on when you are talking about attracting briefs. Now, globalization is probably more of a concern for the employers and bar association, but one thing we also need to start to bear in mind is that we are now increasingly in a global village, and there is some level of incursion, presence of foreign participants in our own local domain. So you're not just competing against Abdul and Jamil and Sheon and Ugochukwu from Owerri, Bauchi, Ibadan, and Inagua alone. You are also now starting to think of Jen, Antoine, and a couple of other people from France, America, and Britain, who are starting to come together in various forms, either in front of law firms or with the aid of technology and other things that we're starting to see, and treaties like the Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement and a couple of other global treaties, that there is some international presence coming in. So you need to bear this in mind as you prepare for the future, that you're not playing a local game anymore. You need to think global. Your concern is global, and you prepare for that change and that future. Now, what is also changing is the use of technology and its impact across all areas, including the legal space. It is slow in catching on in Nigeria. So far, the kind of legal tech we have for now has been limited to the software that law firms use to manage time, manage communication, use of resources, uploading things and all of that. But if you're also following developments in the artificial intelligence space, you see that things are beginning to look up. You see ChatGPT providing help to people who are drafting agreements and a couple of things. So it might not be too far away in the future where some of these things will be readily available to every Nigerian, and the demand for a lawyer might somewhat reduce. So what then do you do to compete with this kind of development? It is to build up your skills, carve a niche for yourself and be so good at it, and then learn how to leverage that technology itself to also boost your own practice. So be visible on the places where you need to be visible. For instance, a couple of us have developed softwares that sort of operate like on their directories. That's the actual word, their directories. So if you need to sign up on directories to be visible, use LinkedIn for visibility in terms of the content you create, write articles and all of that. Use that as well to help yourself. In closing, I'm now going to narrow down to what you need, what to do, and what you need to excel in the future, which is, of course, those are some of the things that we have used so far, that we've gotten to the stage where we are, and we have learned from those we've worked with and stayed close to, like Mr. Tobina. And So I'm sharing some of these things that we ourselves are also still, learning to adopt and use. One is focus. We are in an increasingly connected age. Perhaps when Mr. Tobena went to law school and when he started practice, he probably would need to go into a library to find a particular authority. If you needed a precedent for a contract, you needed to look through the compendium for contract precedents, that were published in those times, or something like that. But now everything is online. But so are also the distractions. The way the world is connected sort of reduces the amount of focus we have. So you need to consciously train yourself to focus on your job and get the job done. This is very, very important if you want to do good work consistently, as Dr. Lee emphasized, that you need to be consistent and reliable. If you're going to be able to do that, you need to be able to cut out the noise around you. One of the key tips that somebody else offered was that the airplane mode on your phone is probably one of the most helpful tools. Use it. And then a couple of us, try that. There are times that you need to just, take a step back from the noise around social media and the internet to focus on doing your work. Now, the topic of focus is also important to me because I have seen its practical importance. Now, some of the things I mentioned and I will still mention require you stretching yourself, so to speak. You need to, learn to socialize, network, meet with people outside of work hours, meet friends across different sectors, not necessarily just the people you went to law school and currently work in law firms with. You need to, diversify your network, so to speak, and a couple of other things that you need to do to, stand out and be a lawyer who is, respected and recognized. But all of these, sort of drain you in one way or the other. One of the things that you also need to do is, participate in the activities of the NBA, of the Young Lawyers Forum, which I'm going to come to. But you will need to do these things in moderation, and all of that ties back into focus, because if you don't do them in moderation, you're going to lose your ability to focus at work and your quality of work will drop. And then at the end of the day, when your quality of work drops, perhaps you're going to get bad ratings, not be promoted, or even asked to take a break or take your exit from that particular office. And, it just defeats the whole purpose of trying to build yourself into a better person at work. So learn to focus, reduce the noise when you need to, use different apps if you need to. I mean, there are certain apps where you can lock different other apps on the phone away for a certain number of hours, or use the DND function so that you're able to read and concentrate for 4 hours or something like that. And there are a couple of books that can also that you can also look up. Carl Newport or James Clear, they write interesting books on these areas. Deep Work, Atomic Habits, they are important books to read. Now, the next one is mentorship. This is one form of mentorship. So this is a general form of mentorship, but you may also need to identify people you can, go to more often and on a predictable basis. You don't know when next ICLE is going to organize this kind of session where you meet different lawyers from different fields and offices who will share their insights that would then help you. But if you have a particular mentor, you can go to them, for advice and insight on different things that you're dealing with on a more specific basis. So it's helpful to find a mentor or mentors who you can talk to. And one way to find mentors is, approach people, but not necessarily approach them to ask for things, but sometimes you can reach out to people and offer to assist with something they're doing, and then from there you build a relationship and they can guide you, especially in the areas where you're interested in. Now, balanced networking, I think this is self-explanatory, but I'll now go further into it. One of the things that have helped me as a young lawyer is that I've been actively involved in the activities of the NBA and the sections of the NDA, and then particularly the YLF. They help you to connect with more people. They help you to connect with more people like you who are dealing with the kind of issues you deal with, and you can share perspectives. Some there's things you will say that will help others, there are things others will say that will help you. You can take your challenges to them and for perspective, and that could just be what helps you solve a particular case or address a particular issue in a legal opinion or something like that. But also importantly, networking within the MBA also gives you some sort of visibility. This can be helpful for referrals. When people know you and they know what you do, when someone else needs the kind of services you render, your name would come up in their mind and can offer it. It also builds your capacity, in terms of leadership skills, communication skills. These are some of the things you will learn from working with active organizations or arms of the MBA rather, like the YLF and SBL, SLP, and SPDL, some of which Dr. Lee mentioned earlier. So because I'm particularly interested in YLF, I'm going to talk to you more about YLF. Pardon me. So the YLF focuses on young lawyers. As presently structured, the council, as led by Tasir, is designed to attend to the needs, the professional needs. Please don't go and ask them for money to do your wedding or something like that. So they attend to the professional needs of young lawyers from 1 to 7 years across the country. But there is also a substructure, so to speak, in the sense that if you are in different jurisdictions, you can find out the Young Lawyers Forum executives in that particular branch, and then find out what the activities are and join the YLF in your branch. That also helps because each branch tends to organize activities tailor-made for that particular branch. So if, for instance, in a particular branch, they know, they identify that the common area of practice is maritime, they can organize lessons and mentorship sessions or seminars and other things tailor-made for those who practice in that jurisdiction. It helps. But one thing is you need to look out for the announcements and information on activities of the YLF and participate both at the national and local level. It really helps. It really helps. You can grow a lot from participating in these activities and connect with senior lawyers, connect with people from outside the profession. It helps a lot, just as other sections of the MBA can be very helpful to you. The last point is self-care. Now, in all of these things, you're exerting yourself one way or the other, physically and mentally. A young lawyer needs to take care of himself. Ordinarily, the burdens of the job are a lot, especially for instance, if you're working in some commercial law firms where you are, so to speak, on the job around the clock. People tend to have calls into the night, and then you draft agreements again. You have to look at a document overnight and send it out before the next morning. So you tend to be busy a lot. If you are in litigation firms, for very busy litigation firms, it's also the same thing. There's always a meeting, there's always a process to respond to within a specified period of time, and there's constantly pressure. What I'm trying to say is the work is demanding for any successful lawyer, and if you want to be successful, you're going to want to exert yourself and put in the work so it can be demanding. And then at the same time, you now need to do all these other things that we're all recommending: join SBL, join YLF, read, network, write articles. So all of that can be demanding. One thing you should not now forget in all of this is to take care of yourself. You need to be able to unplug and rest, sleep, eat well, take care of your mental health. If you need help at any point in time, see a specialist if you need to. Just make sure you look after yourself, because at the end of the day, you have yourself to yourself. So that is very important. So I'll just close on that note, and if you're able to also look at the summit, may be helpful, which is that I say do the work. It is very important. Understand the terrain. Understand the terrain talks about all of the issues I talked about, understanding how people perceive you, how you perceive yourself, the kind of work you need to do, how segmented the industry can be. So sometimes you need to specialize, but at the same time, clients are also looking for people who understand a bit of everything. So you also need to know a bit about everything. So it's just about understanding how things work and understanding the terrain. Then socialize sensibly. Yes, reach out, network, but comport yourself, respect yourself. Don't throw yourself at the feet of people in the name of being a young lawyer. And at the same time, don't go and act all haughty and proud because I told you to assert yourself and respect yourself. So I wish you all the best, and I'm sure if you have any question, we can look at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Muntasi Adamu, Chairman Young Lawyers Forum. Thank you very much, Toby Adebowale, immediate past Chairman, Young Lawyers Forum. I think this is what you call keeping the best for the last, because again, I think your leaders as the young lawyers have just spoken to you, and very contemporary, the issues they have raised. Before saying my final thank yous and goodbye, and making my final comments, I think there are a number of questions in the Q&A box, and I think that most of those questions were directed at Dioye. But what I'll do is, as I go through them, I'll answer those that I will, and then ask Toby or Muntasi to interject as necessary. So the first one is, sir, please talk about the area where a young lawyer will put more energy to get to the top as an aspiring corporate lawyer. Well, I think my view on that is that Dioye did quite a good job of the topic, and he ran through his the competency framework. And in that competency framework, you see all the relevant heads that the SBL has recommended to the MBA, and indeed the MBA has adopted as what a good corporate lawyer needs in order to succeed. But corporate lawyer, litigator, whoever you are, whatever you are, there are certain things that I think you must understand about the profession. Number one is who is the lawyer? What does the lawyer do? What are the tools that he uses to do the job that he does? First of all, the lawyer is someone, whether he's a litigator or a corporate practitioner, he's someone that represents people. And the highest standard that's expected of someone that represents people. So if I have to represent you, for instance, I have to understand your case better than you. I have to understand your business better than you. I have to understand your problems better than you in order to provide solutions to them. And it's a bit of a complicated or complex profession, because you find that your main tool is knowledge. So being in the space where you understand that it takes a lot to drill down things, very highly competitive, you're dealing with people as intelligent as yourself. So you require a lot of discipline. You're required to understand the technique of doing everything. That's why we'll talk about effective communication skills. Dr. Dimba talked about effective communication skills, my Lord Justice Dimba. Yesterday again, he talked about those things, communication skills, presentation, discipline, diligence, being analytical, research-minded, thorough. There are quite a number of things that you need, but the most important component of all of this, in my view, is the discipline to see all these things through. And I must say that you must take your opportunities. Whatever you are doing, wherever you are, whatever work you are doing, you must be someone who is minded to create an impression. And that means that you must be diligent, you must be a champion, you must do things better than anybody. And I think that the notion, I'm someone who I always frown at the notion of young lawyers thinking of themselves as young lawyers. I would think of myself as a lawyer first before anything, and I've always thought this way. That way, you know that you have been you've been sworn to a profession. You are a member of that profession. You're as good as anybody else in it. The only other thing the next person has more than you is experience and some exposure. But with the right level of diligence, with the right level of industry, with the right level of network and inquisitiveness, you will find out that you can come up tops on any matter that you're dealing with, because you deal with matters on a file-by-file and case-by-case basis. And that's why industry and discipline, I think, are the most important components of success. Muntasi, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. Hello? Can you hear me?
Muntasi, I wondered whether I wanted to add anything to my comments.
Yes,
on that
can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, yes. So I think you've actually, yes. I think my network is, like I said, I'm currently in the northeast part of the country, so my network is a bit shaky.
Be careful.
Okay. Yes, I want to follow the money. So, yes, I think you have actually captured it honestly, aptly. Yes, I think the most important thing I think for any lawyer is, of course, you need to put yourself out there. And I think it's one thing that you in person, you have actually shown that a lot in what you do and how you try to give even young lawyers that you work with the opportunity to actually prove themselves, to shine and everything. I think, like you said, every young lawyer, I remember what you just said now, you've said it to me over and over again, like a couple of engagements before, about the idea of you need to see yourself as a lawyer first before you see yourself as a young lawyer. So once you have that mindset, I think it gives you the leverage you need for you to actually go out there and shine like the star that you are. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Muntasi. The next one is, Sir, what's your advice for a new WIG who wants to be an in-house counsel? Do you advise the person to go ahead, or is it better to garner experience first by working in a full service law firm? Toby, I think you can take this one.
Yes, personally, I would advise work in a law firm if you have the opportunity. Work in a law firm for 3-4 years before going in-house. It helps you to build the breadth and depth that you would definitely need by the time you start to deal with different issues as an in-house counsel. And because you might also find that being an in-house counsel can be somewhat more of, to use the word, a Lone Ranger situation compared to law firm where you have about 3, 4, 5 colleagues you can easily turn to for a second opinion on an issue, second, fourth, third, fifth opinion on the same issue for proper balance. And you see more people discussing issues from time to time, and you build knowledge and perspectives on the same issue and legal provisions. You don't have that necessarily in an in-house position. So it is preferable that you would have built your legal skills and analysis and all of that to a certain extent where you're able to take decisions on your own before you go for such positions.
Thank you very much, Toby. That reminds me of an advice I had a long time ago, early in my career. So in that role, it was in England. I worked in a department of about 100 lawyers. And then I got a position that meant that I would advise a particular department within the same organization. And my boss at the time advised that I could do the advising right from working with my colleagues within the legal department. And I found that quite useful, because what happens when you work as an in-house or a dedicated lawyer is that the people who you work with don't understand that sometimes you need to consult, you need time to read, you need time to research, and you need to brainstorm with your colleagues. So I completely agree with you. And most importantly, I think that the choice of where you work is critical, whether it's in-house or the firm that you work in. Anybody who is making a career choice, I think you must look at where you're working and ask yourself, do I have the resource in that organization to help me develop? Do I have the people with the knowledge and the skills to help me on my own skills? Even when you're going in-house, you must ask yourself, how does that in-house organization operate? Because when people talk about in-house a lot, there are certain in-house people who work in-house and it's in a real estate firm. They're the only lawyer there. They just graduated out of school and they're made to do all sorts of things. And one must be careful to grow atrophy in their career. So this is a profession that is, the skills are quite transferable and one must consistently seek to equip himself. Now, beyond that, we must be cognizant of the fact that Nigeria doesn't give you a lot of latitude or space to choose. So you must be conscious of the opportunities that you face and use them well. If you find yourself in a place where you have no option but to take on a job because of your financial circumstances, you have to go in-house, take advantage of the MBA ICLE trainings, take advantage of the SBL trainings, SLP trainings, take advantage of your networks. Make sure that you never give advice in the role that you play that is not above board. So if you're not sure of yourself, there are a lot of people you can reach out to ask questions about what to do. Always do the right thing and keep developing yourself. Then the next one is, please, can you further elaborate on good communication skills? I wonder who's going to take that one. I'm not a great communicator, so hope you might want to take that one.
Well, for me, I am also learning to communicate well. But one of the things that I've learned is ensure there is clarity and you can keep it simple. Simplicity and clarity do a lot of good. They do a lot of good. It is good if you can speak fluently, have oratory skills. It is especially important if you can write well, because a lot of times as a lawyer, you need to put your opinion or advice in writing. You are going to have to handle a lot of correspondence, draft briefs, draft legal opinions, regardless of any part of the practice you're focusing on. You're going to need to write a lot. So build very good writing skills, and you can only build writing skills if you write consistently. Try your hands on commenting on topical issues as they happen. Write a short analysis and publish on your personal social media page or send to a legal blog. There are quite a number of them now. If you want to even push yourself further, do some more research. Write a properly researched article and send to a journal. There are quite a number of journals as well, locally and internationally. If you do this consistently, you will find that you are communicating more effectively. And when we think, we actually think a lot more when we write. And because we are thinking a lot more when we write, when we speak about those things we've written about, you will find that you are even more fluent than you would ordinarily have been if you were just speaking on a random topic. So read, research, write, and then speak. Yes.
Thanks a lot, Toby. I think I like the phrase, keep it simple. I mean, what is communication? Communication is me talking to you and you understanding what I'm saying, me sending you an email and you understanding exactly what I mean. So in order to be an effective communicator, I think first of all, you must understand the subject matter of which you communicate. If you understand the subject matter very well, then you're able to communicate in a way that people would understand you. But it's also a skill to keep the communication simple. I think one of the people that I like reading their judgments is Lord Denning. If you read any Lord Denning judgment, you see that he breaks it down so simply that it's not difficult for you to understand exactly what he's saying. So reading people who are great communicators or listening to great communicators can also help you develop your own communication skills. But you must be conscious of your audience all the time. Who am I talking to? Does he actually understand what I'm trying to say? Is he going to walk out of the room believing that I have actually solved his problem or made him understand what the issues are or what the solutions are? And the next one is, I've been following the training by the MBA ICLE here on Zoom and the replays on YouTube. Today, I researched some of the speakers and their outstanding achievements made me overwhelmed. I wonder when I will be able to attain such heights. It has made me overwhelmed that I don't know where to start from again. Please help. addressed to Mr. Tobena. Thank you, sir. I think this is one of the most interesting questions of the entire series, and I'm happy that it was addressed to me. I think important, or one of the popular cliches, is that Rome was not built in a day. So if you go to someone who is in primary school or secondary school and you reel out your CV and you address yourself as barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, the person will be overwhelmed by that, surely. And when a non-lawyer hears is a barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court, just the barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, that Supreme Court is a bit intimidating. The person might actually think that there are barristers that are not of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. So I want you to understand that you build your blocks gradually, every day. Don't be overwhelmed by anything. Don't be intimidated by anything. And there was a point Justice Dimba made yesterday. It's a point that I often make myself. Career development is about knowing where you're going and then walking towards it. So it's one of the things that you walk from the answer to the question. You know where you're going, you're walking towards it diligently. And every day you find you've added one more thing to your retinue of achievements, your retinue of experience. And for me, as a lawyer, it is even more about experience than achievement. It is every day, what am I doing better? What am I doing better? And once you keep at it, I think that you will build that CV. You can imagine myself, a career that has taken me from Nigeria to England, practicing as a qualified lawyer in England, working in the public sector and the private sector over the years, and coming back to Nigeria and continuing my practice. And somebody had asked about changing, and I think Toby made a comment in his presentation that if they ask me to move from my comfort zone today to another zone, I might find it a bit difficult, and I accept. But you see, we are confronted by the challenges that we face in life. I always knew I was going to come back to Nigeria at some point in my 10-year career in England. I knew that once I struck the 10-year mark, I was going to come back. Now the thing for me was my practice had gotten so specialized that if I came back to Nigeria and I said I was an urban regeneration lawyer, and that was the only thing I was going to do, which was what I'd done for about 8 years of the last of the 10 years I spent in England, I would probably not have had any work to do. So I had to retrain in other areas. And sometimes when I find that I have a difficulty in certain things, because even though I understand the principles of law around it, I haven't done it in practice before. I speak to people who are my contemporaries, I speak to people who are my juniors, and that's what you do. Once you know where the knowledge bank is, say, God forbid that a lawyer will know all law, but he should at least know where to find it. So you must be very creative, very innovative, and industry and discipline is what will take you there. So, and you should never, being overwhelmed is the first way never to get anything done. Yeah? Rather than be overwhelmed, see it as a challenge. Say to yourself, if these guys can do it, I can do better, whatever it is they say they do. And if there is any that excites you, try and find a way to get into it and get it done. It's not rocket science, not difficult. Next set of questions, as new WIGS, how do we register, join these MBA sections? Second, as a young lawyer who desires to do litigation for a while and switch to corporate practice, which of the MBA sections is advisable to join? Muntasi, do you want to take this or do you want me to?
Okay, I was hoping you would do, then I'll support you, but let me just start anyway. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the first one about young lawyer trying to move to do litigation before moving to corporate practice. I think that by and large speaks to my own experience as well, because I started at a law firm in Abuja that was fully a litigation law firm, where I was able to opportunity to be on some of the high profile cases in Abuja at the time. I did that for about a year and a half before I move to, because I knew long time I really want to do more of corporate practice, because I'm more tilted towards, because growing up while I was still in the university, I think one lawyer that I looked up to at the time, I still look up to him anyway, is Benga Yobedi, because I was somebody who, of course, if you follow his track record, is somebody who was a more of a commercial lawyer full time. So I knew I was going to do litigation. I was going to do corporate practice long term, but I just knew that, yes, at least for a start, let me have a feel of what it means to be a litigator. And I think that's what was the reason why I decided to actually stay in the litigation law firm for a year. And I think it's a good one. One thing it does, it actually exposes you to, you get to go to court, you get to, draft legal documents. I remember one of the cases we did in, I think it was my Lord of September's court at the time, and remember me rushing early in the morning to file processes, because he said he's going to hear the case that same day and we must close the matter. It was quite an experience for me. And I'm sure I understand why you also want to take that route. So I think it's encouraging. Like Toby said earlier, you need to, for a start, don't limit yourself. Anything that comes, actually just enjoy the opportunity to do more than, don't put any limitation to yourself. Anything that comes, whether litigation, whether corporate practice, just go for it. At the end of the day, then issue of specialization comes in maybe as you grow older in the profession. Yes, I think I will. So you can go ahead now. Thank you.
Thank you, Muntasi. I would encourage every body on every delegate to try and become a member of their branch. It's actually mandatory to be a member of whatever branch that you belong to. And once you get to your branch, ask your secretary for how to become members of the various sections. Toby, I don't know whether you have Endurance's email address for the section on business law. You can also drop perhaps Mrs. Folashade Alice's email address or Chief Ferdinand Obi's email address or something on the chat box, please, if you have them, so that or phone number, or then Mondo Bani. So if you look at our TCCP platform, you could drop their phone numbers also from there, so people can reach out to them and then make inquiries on how to join. Then the next one is Montasi. Thank you for taking that question. I think it was quite exhaustively dealt with. Plow your hands in anything that you have the opportunity to do as a lawyer. Law is law, and then start finding your aptitude and your opportunities, because the market is not so robust that you want to cubicle yourself very quickly unless you have a retinue of clients that can fit that need, or indeed that area is so sophisticated that you don't need to do any other thing. But I think a bit of versatility also helps you. Please, sir, what would you recommend for a person who have interest in corporate insolvency? Well, that's an interesting one. We have a corporate insolvency series coming up in April, and I'll encourage you to participate in that series. There's also the BRIPAN. You might want to research into the BRIPAN and try and take their courses. It's actually now required that anybody who wants to do corporate insolvency would have a certification, should have a certification in order to do it. That's in the newcomer. And then also look out for all sorts of trainings on corporate insolvency, and look at firms that actually specialize in those areas and see whether there is an opportunity to work there. Sorry, I'm having poor network connectivity here. We'll also be privy to the slides and certificates, if any. Yes, the certificates will be issued at the end of the training today for today's training. I hope you've been getting the certificates for the others. As far as the slides are concerned, you should get all the slides to your email this week. I hear that a dedicated email for, not a dedicated email, but an email list for all the new WIGS. So I'll ask the IT people to send the slides across to all of you. But as far as the record is concerned, MBA HQ is a YouTube channel. Do please go there and, you know, take advantage of all the training sessions that are there. Please, today being the last day of this session, can we get the recordings of all the sessions from day one? We will really appreciate that. I particularly would really appreciate it. MBA HQ is the YouTube channel. That's the repository for all our trainings. All those on this series have been uploaded there. The ones that have not been will be uploaded today. Please, how can we join the YLF at the national and state levels? Also, how do we become registered members of the MBA to receive updates on information? I think I'll take the MBA one, and then I'll let Muntasi take on the young lawyers one. As far as MBA is concerned, I know we're talking to the IT people about having your emails uploaded. I think there's something connected to your SCN numbers, but it is in the interest of the MBA to make sure that everybody has, and that we have the emails for all the lawyers in Nigeria and communications are put out to them. So we are working on this, and we should be able to give you a definitive position soon. But do keep your eyes open for email communications from the MBA. Muntasi.
Thank you, sir. Regarding how to join the YLF, like Toby also mentioned earlier, we have YLF in all the branches of the MBA, local branches. So we have, I'm sure, like Mr. Tobena said earlier, every lawyer is expected to be a member of a branch. If you're practicing Lagos, you're expected to be a member of the Lagos branch. If you're in Kano, you're expected to be a member of Kano branch as well, or anywhere you practice across the country. So I think that's the point, really. Once you belong to a branch, that branch also has its YLF, a local branch within the branch as well. So what I would advise is, wherever you're practicing, try to identify your branch first. Then also, after identifying your branch, then ask about the Young Lawyers Forum of the branch. I'm sure they would link you up with the person, either the ESCOs or either all the members, right? So you can identify yourself with them. And for the national, of course, the national is more like a governing council that oversees the activities of all the branches across the country. That's what we do essentially. And from what we do as well, we try to see how we can be that interface between the YLF at the national, MBA rather at the national, and also with young lawyers across the country. And of course, the YLF has been organizing trainings as well, just like the ICLE. We've been organizing some trainings across the country. And of course, we intend to, before the end of the month, we're going to announce an arbitration competition, which is going to be a small fees of. So, of course, like I said earlier, just identify your branch. If you belong to register with a branch, local branch of the MBA, and then, of course, we tell them to link you up with the local branch of the YLF. I think that's how to go about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Muntasi. So someone says, to break the distance barrier, how can a young lawyer gain remote job opportunity or remote role within the country as it is in other professions? That's a tough question. I don't know that there are many. I don't know that there are many law firms, or I don't know of any law firm that offers virtual or remote working opportunities, but they may be out there. It's a question of Google is your friend, find out whether those opportunities exist.
Yeah,
but, do you know any?
Yes,
so
sir.
Some of our virtual
Yes.
internship.
Yes, we do, sir.
Complex is one
Complex, yeah.
other law firms. And in the direction that the legal profession is also going, which may perplex Mr. Tobin and some other people in the higher echelon of the MD. There are also apps you can sign up to provide legal services, as a freelancer, so to speak. But you will need to do some research on this.
Toby, why do you think I'm going to be perplexed?
Because I know senior members of the bar have been wondering, what are you guys building?
I'm quite excited about innovation. I'm quite excited. So the reason why, so if a new week says to me that, remote working opportunities, I'm a contact person, right? So we do, I think, 4 days a week, 1 day remote working. But if I'm working with a young wig that's starting out with me, I believe that the most he learns from me is from shadowing me and what I do. There are things that you pick up as you move around every day. So when people say, we require a lot of training, I think that on the job training is the most efficient kind of training. And if you're a very brilliant young lawyer, and there are many like that who don't need any guidance or any training, and they're able to work on their own unsupervised, it's the kind of thing you find in Nigeria, then I would say, well, by all means, do it. But professional competence and not being negligent and giving the right advice to the client is something that is critical to the integrity of the profession. So one thing that I find that we don't have in Nigeria, and I think we should have, is pupillage or training contracts as you have in England. It's one of the things, again, we did not pick up from England. So if you were qualified as a solicitor, you do your LPC, ready to practice, you're required to do 2 years of training contract, do three different seats. So a reason for you to gain hands-on experience even before you become a solicitor, right? And those who are barristers have to do a pupillage. And then even before the person works on supervised, is required to do another 3 years post-qualification. All of that is to protect the integrity of the profession. So whatever remote work that somebody is allowed to do, I think that we need to be cognizant of actually picking up the training that we want, looking far and asking ourselves, where do we want to be? So when you build apps and all sorts of devices that you use to perhaps advise your clients and all of that, who are the people who are using it? What level of advisory do you require at that stage? So whether we like it or not, artificial intelligence has come to stay. We either live with it or we die. But the most important thing is being sure that in practice, you have the right synergies that actually helps you, one, to evolve, two, to maintain the right integrity for the profession. So I wish access to the lectures held on previous sessions of this program. I wish to access, okay. Please, can you guide me? It's MBA HQ. Toby, can you type that, the YouTube channel for them? Just do a note for them on the chat box. Anybody can go to MBA HQ, right? It is, that's where we have the repository of all the trainings we've had, not just this series, but all the trainings. And it's quite rich in the resource that you have there. Please, sir, I humbly apply that you address this. I have been in attendance for more than 5 days of the training, but I only got a certificate bearing 2 MBA. Please, thank you very much for raising this issue. I will speak to the IT team and make sure that you all get your certificates. Thank you very much. Just know that we're keeping a record of everybody who's attending, and our certificates will go out to everyone. Thank you. Yes, I have not received any certificate for any of the MBA ICLE sessions I've attended, and I'd like them to please, and all the hours I've put in. Please make sure you put in the correct email address as you register. We're going to send the certificates to you. I think certificates were ordinarily generated automatically, but I think we're having a few technical hitches and they're being done manually. So it might take a bit of time, but you will get them nevertheless. How can a young lawyer gain remote opportunity that are not location restricted as it is in the other? So I think we've taken that now. I hope the answer was satisfactory between Toby, Montasi, and myself. Hello, sir. Tobena, please. I'm yet to receive any certificate, my certificate of the session. I have attended so far. I have not also received any slides of the lectures as promised. I always drop my email on each and every session I attend. I hope you look into this. Thank you. Yes, I'm looking into it. And that's I think you will make it. Thank you. And you have done well in taking us through the process. Good luck. God bless you, as I feel you will make a good leader. Thank you very much for your kind words. But we're looking into it. I will make sure that you get all of that. As for the papers, we'll circulate them. I hope you all have put in your correct email addresses. We'll circulate the papers, all of them together, tomorrow or next, now that the whole session is finished. We didn't want to clog up your system with a lot of slides and papers, but we'll do that definitely. I haven't gotten any certificates so far. I've also not received this. I've been attending. Okay. Thank you for the platform given to us. Some of the speakers promised to share their contact details through the facilitators, but till this moment, we have not received any. Please, this will be vital as some of us still want to tap from the knowledge of those who are seasoned in the profession. So I have been in attendance for the and haven't gotten any certificate. So thank you very much, dear delegates, for attending the series. I'm very grateful to all the panelists who have, at no cost to the MBA, delivered these sessions. I'm very grateful to the chairman of the Young Lawyers Forum, Mr. Montasi Adamu, my good friend, whose dedication to the development and evolution of his young lawyer colleagues has been very significant and well noted. Also to Toby Adebowale, who has been very helpful and was very involved throughout the process, right from the creation of the concept note of this series to the reduction of the concept notes to outcomes and expectations and all of that. I'm very grateful to you, Toby. I'm grateful to all those who have participated in this series. I encourage you to look out for the various sessions of the MBA ICLE and indeed all other trainings of the MBA. In the coming months, you're going to see advertisements. Do engage. This is the most significant organ of the MBA because it's the only organ that feeds to what we do on a daily basis. There's no way you can be a complete lawyer without engaging in continuing professional development. So thank you very much. Please remember that if you're not on the table, you're on the menu. Remember that life is about the impressions that you build. Developing the right attitude in the workplace is essential. Being a person of value is even more important. Making sure that people don't pass you by and you're not an also-ran, that you're someone of significance in whatever you do. It takes discipline, it takes industry, but it is surmountable. This is a great profession. It's a profession that promises you prosperity, but it's a profession that is very demanding and very jealous. You must apply yourself, and no matter what situation or circumstance you find yourself in today, it is not the end of it. The MBA is trying every day to create opportunities for training, for mentorship, for professional and career development. And I think that if you follow all the things that are going on around you, you are definitely going to have a successful career. It's a difficult country. It's a difficult time in the world for professionals, for everybody, including lawyers. However, diligence, industry, and discipline will guarantee you success and prosperity over time. Thank you very much for having been a part of the series. I am encouraged by the numbers I see, and I wish you the best of luck as you grow and evolve in your career. Good luck, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tubina, for all you do. We are truly grateful. And I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody on this call and those that have left already. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Montasi.
thank you, Chair. I mean, this has been very helpful to everyone, I imagine, and even to those of us who came to chip in one or two things. And as what someone said in the comment box, you are clearly a great leader. So we look forward to more of this in various ways. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Toby. Thank you for your support always. Thank you, Montasi. Thank you, Sarah Ajijola. Thank you, Wale MBA. Thank you, guys, and see you very soon. God bless you all.